The snow-dusted peaks of the Wyoming Territory glowed pink in the dawn light as 19-year-old Naomi Lawson fled her father's homestead, a squalling infant clutched to her breast. Blood from her hastily bandaged feet spotted the pristine snow behind her. They'd taken her boots to prevent this very escape. The child, barely a week old, whimpered against the bitter December cold of 1876, and Naomi pressed him closer, shielding him with what remained of her tattered shawl. "Hush now, Thomas," she whispered, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "Just a little farther, we'll find somewhere safe." Her father's final words echoed in her ears. "No daughter of mine bears a bastard child. You leave tonight or I'll cast you both to the wolves myself." Her mother had stood silently by, eyes downcast, as Naomi's younger sisters watched from the shadows. The shame had been too great for the God-fearing family that had moved west with dreams of a better life. Naomi had walked through the night, following the North Star as best she could, praying to find the next settlement before frostbite claimed them both. Thomas's father, a traveling salesman who'd promised to return for her, had never come back after learning of her condition. Now her only hope lay in reaching the mining town of Silver Creek, which she'd heard was a 3-day journey on foot. By midday, the temperature had risen slightly, but Naomi's strength was failing. The crude wrappings around her feet had disintegrated, and each step felt like walking on knife blades. Thomas had grown too quiet, and panic surged through her. "Please, God," she prayed, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Don't take my boy, take me if you must, but spare him." As if in answer, the distant sound of hoofbeats reached her ears. Naomi turned, squinting against the glare of the sun on snow. A lone rider approached, his silhouette growing larger against the vast expanse of the winter landscape. Fear gripped her. Outlaws and bandits roamed these territories, and a desperate young woman alone would be easy prey. She clutched Thomas tighter and pushed herself to move faster, her feet leaving crimson trails in her wake. But the rider gained on her quickly, and soon she heard his call. "Miss." "Hold up there, miss." With nowhere to hide on the open plain, Naomi stopped and turned, ready to beg for mercy for her child if not for herself. The rider pulled his horse to a stop several feet away. He was younger than she'd expected, perhaps 25, with a weathered face beneath his wide-brimmed hat. His clothes were those of a working cowboy, sturdy, practical, and well-worn. What caught her attention most were his eyes, clear blue and radiating concern rather than threat. "Good Lord, miss," he said, dismounting with fluid grace. "What in heaven's name are you doing out here alone?" Naomi swayed on her feet, suddenly aware of how desperately tired she was. "Please," she managed, "my baby, help my baby." As consciousness slipped away, she felt strong arms catching her, and her last thought was of her son, praying he'd be safe with this stranger. Isaac Dawson had seen his share of hardship in his years working the frontier, but the sight of the young woman collapsing in the snow with an infant clutched to her chest struck him to the core. He caught her before she hit the ground, carefully supporting both mother and child. "Easy now," he murmured, though he knew she couldn't hear him. The baby let out a weak cry, and Isaac quickly opened his sheepskin coat to check on the tiny bundle. The infant was alive, but cold, dangerously so. With practiced movements, Isaac unwrapped his woolen scarf and swaddled the child more securely before tucking him inside his own coat, against the warmth of his body. He then turned his attention to the unconscious young woman. Her face was delicate beneath the wind burn and exhaustion, framed by dark hair that had escaped from her bonnet. But it was her feet that made his stomach clench, bloody, bare, and beginning to show the white patches of frostbite. "What monster put you out in this?" he whispered, anger rising in his chest. There was no time to waste. Isaac lifted her carefully and placed her across his saddle before mounting behind her. With one arm securing the mother and the other holding the baby safely against his chest, he turned his horse, Samson, back toward his cabin. "Steady now, boy," he told the reliable stallion. "We've got precious cargo." The ride back to his homestead took nearly an hour, during which the young woman remained unconscious, though the baby occasionally whimpered. Isaac spoke soothingly to both of them, promising safety and warmth, though he knew only the child might hear his words. His cabin came into view as they crested a small rise, a sturdy log structure with smoke curling from its stone chimney. His ranch hand, Miguel, must have kept the fire going while Isaac was out checking fence lines. "Miguel," Isaac called as they approached. "Come quick." The older man hurried from the barn, his weathered face registering shock as he saw what, or rather who, Isaac carried. "Madre de Dios," Miguel exclaimed. "Where did you find them?" "About 10 miles east," Isaac replied, carefully dismounting while cradling the infant. "She collapsed just as I reached her. Take her inside while I tend to Samson and bring in the baby." Miguel gently lifted the unconscious woman from the saddle. "The poor Chiquita," he said, noticing her ruined feet. "She has been through much." "Heat water and fetch my mother's medicine box," Isaac instructed, quickly leading Samson to the barn. He settled the horse with a quick brush and feed, keeping the baby tucked securely against him. The infant, who couldn't be more than a few days old, had stopped crying and now stared up at Isaac with unfocused blue eyes. A tuft of dark hair peeked out from the improvised swaddling. "Don't you worry, little man," Isaac said softly. "Your mama's going to be fine. You're both safe now." Inside the cabin, Miguel had already placed the young woman on Isaac's bed and was stoking the fire to blazing. The medicine box, a legacy from Isaac's mother, who had been known throughout the territory for her healing skills before pneumonia took her 3 winters past, sat open on the table. "Her feet are in a bad way," Miguel said grimly. Isaac nodded, carefully laying the baby in a drawer padded with clean shirts to serve as a makeshift cradle. "The child needs milk. Can you ride to the Hendersons and see if Martha can spare some from their goat?" Miguel nodded and pulled on his coat. "What of the sheriff? Should I tell him?" Isaac considered this. The woman had been running from something or someone. Until he knew more, he was reluctant to involve the law. Not yet, he decided. Let's help them first. After Miguel departed, Isaac set to work. He bathed the woman's feet in tepid water, gradually increasing the temperature to avoid shocking the damaged tissue. Some areas were worryingly white with frostbite, but he hoped they'd caught it in time. He applied his mother's salve of comfrey and yarrow, then wrapped her feet in clean bandages. As he worked, the young woman stirred, her eyelids fluttering. Suddenly, she sat bolt upright with a gasp. "Thomas, where's my baby?" "Easy," Isaac said, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Your little one is right here, safe and sound." He indicated the makeshift cradle. She lunged toward it, wincing as her injured feet protested. Isaac helped her to the edge of the bed where she could peer into the drawer. The relief on her face as she saw her sleeping child was palpable. "Thank God," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I feared." "He's a strong little fellow," Isaac assured her. "But you both need care. I've sent for milk for him and you need rest and nourishment." She looked up at him, truly seeing him for the first time. Her eyes, deep brown and filled with a wariness that belied her youth, assessed him carefully. "Why are you helping us? You don't know me." Isaac pulled a chair close to the bed and sat, maintaining a respectful distance. "I'm Isaac Dawson. This is my ranch, and I help because it's the right thing to do." He paused. "Might I know your name, miss?" She hesitated before answering. "Naomi." "Naomi Lawson." "And the little one?" "Thomas," she replied, her voice softening as she looked at her son. "His name is Thomas." Isaac nodded. "Miss Lawson, I don't know what brought you out alone in such weather with a newborn, and you don't have to tell me if you don't wish to. But you're safe here, I promise you that." Naomi's eyes filled with tears again. "They cast me out," she whispered, the words catching in her throat. "My father, my family, for bearing a child without a husband." Anger flared in Isaac's chest, but he kept his expression neutral. Such things happened too often in these parts where reputation meant everything to some families. "Well," he said after a moment, "you'll stay here until you're healed, both of you." "I can't impose, it's not an imposition," Isaac interrupted gently. "Winter's settling in hard, and those feet won't carry you far for some weeks. Besides, my mother would haunt me forever if I turned away a woman and child in need." A small smile flickered across Naomi's face. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman." "The wisest," Isaac agreed. Now can you take some broth while we wait for milk for the little one? Naomi nodded, suddenly aware of her gnawing hunger. As Isaac moved to the stove to heat the broth, she called after him softly. Mr. Dawson, he turned. Isaac, please. Isaac, she amended. Thank you. Not just for saving us, but for. She gestured vaguely, unable to articulate what she meant, but he understood. Rest now, Naomi. You've carried your burden alone long enough. I'll bear the weight for a while. And in that moment, something shifted between them, a recognition, perhaps, or the seed of trust taking root. Neither could have known how that simple act of compassion would alter both their lives irrevocably. 2 weeks passed with Naomi and Thomas recovering under Isaac's care. The cabin, once a bachelor's sparse dwelling, had transformed with their presence. Thomas's makeshift cradle had been replaced by a proper one that Isaac had crafted from pine boards in his workshop. Naomi's few possessions, a faded dress, a silver locket containing a lock of her mother's hair, and a small Bible now sat on the bedside table. Naomi's feet were healing, though more slowly than she'd hoped. The worst of the frostbite had been confined to 2 toes, which Isaac feared she might lose. But daily treatments with his mother's salves and careful bandaging had preserved most of the damaged tissue. She sat by the window now, nursing Thomas while watching Isaac chop wood in the yard. His methodical, powerful strokes split each log cleanly, and she couldn't help but admire his strength and the careful precision with which he worked, the same precision he'd shown when tending her injuries. Thomas finished feeding and Naomi adjusted her dress, then lifted him to her shoulder to pat his back. At nearly a month old, he was filling out, his cheeks growing plump from the goat's milk, supplementing her own when necessary. Martha Henderson, the neighboring farmer's wife, had been generous with her goat's milk and had visited twice, bringing a basket of supplies for the baby. The door opened, bringing a gust of cold air as Isaac entered with an armload of wood. He stamped the snow from his boots and grinned at the sight of them. "How are my 2 guests this morning?" "Better," Naomi replied, returning his smile despite herself. "Thomas slept for 4 hours straight last night." Isaac deposited the wood in the box by the hearth. "A miracle indeed." "And your feet?" "Less painful today. I was thinking I might try standing a bit more." Isaac nodded, though concern flickered in his eyes. "Just don't push too hard. Healing takes the time it takes." He moved to the stove, lifting the coffee pot to check its contents. Naomi watched him, struck again by how comfortable his presence had become. In the evenings, after Thomas was asleep, they would sit by the fire and talk. Isaac told her about growing up on this land, about his father who died in the war and his mother who taught him everything from doctoring to cooking. He spoke of his dreams for the ranch, expanding the herd, maybe building a larger house someday. Naomi, in turn, had gradually shared her own story. Her family had moved to Wyoming Territory from Pennsylvania 4 years earlier, seeking land and opportunity. Her father, a stern Presbyterian with uncompromising views, had ruled their homestead with an iron hand and Bible verses. When the traveling salesman, Edward, had stopped at their farm last spring, he'd charmed Naomi with tales of eastern cities and promises of a different life. "I was a fool," she told Isaac one night, staring into the flames. "I believed he loved me. When I discovered I was with child and wrote to him, he never replied." Isaac had reached across and taken her hand. "You weren't a fool, Naomi, just young and hoping for something more than the life you had." His understanding, free from judgment, had broken something open inside her. For the first time, she'd wept freely for all she'd lost, not just Edward's false promises, but her family, her home, her place in the world. Now, as Isaac poured coffee and brought her a cup, their fingers brushed. The small contact sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with the hot beverage. "Thank you," she said, meaning more than just the coffee. He seemed about to reply when a knock came at the door. Isaac's brow furrowed. Visitors were rare in winter, and unexpected ones rarer still. "Stay here," he said quietly, moving to the gun rack and taking down his rifle before approaching the door. Naomi clutched Thomas closer, sudden fear gripping her heart. Had her father found her? Or worse, had Edward somehow learned of Thomas's birth and come to make trouble? Isaac opened the door a crack, rifle ready, then relaxed visibly. "Sheriff Davis, what brings you out this way?" The sheriff, a burly man with a silver-streaked beard, stepped inside when Isaac opened the door wider. His eyes immediately fell on Naomi and the baby. "So the rumors are true," he said, removing his hat. "Afternoon, madam." "Sheriff," Naomi acknowledged, her throat suddenly dry. Isaac placed his rifle back on the rack but remained standing, his posture protective. "What rumors would those be, Sheriff?" Sheriff Davis sighed. "Word travels even in winter. Martha Henderson mentioned to her sister about a young woman and baby staying here. That sister told the preacher's wife and," he shrugged, "you know how it goes. And that brings you all the way out here. Why exactly?" Isaac's tone remained pleasant, but there was steel beneath it. "Well, there's been inquiries," the sheriff replied, looking uncomfortable. "From up Casper way, a man named Lawson looking for his daughter and grandchild." Naomi gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Isaac moved to stand beside her chair, his presence solid and reassuring. "The man who cast out his daughter in the dead of winter with a newborn, that Lawson." Isaac's voice was dangerously quiet. The sheriff shifted his weight. "I don't know the particulars, Dawson. Just that he's looking and he's making noise about kidnapping." "Kidnapping?" Naomi exclaimed. "He told me to leave or he'd cast us to the wolves himself." Those were his exact words. Sheriff Davis held up his hands placatingly. "I'm not here to take you anywhere, madam. Just to ascertain the facts. Are you Naomi Lawson?" She nodded, clutching Thomas tighter. "And you're here of your own free will?" "Yes," she said firmly. "Isaac saved our lives." The sheriff nodded slowly. "That's good enough for me for now. But you should know, your father's hired a bounty hunter, man named Harlan Reeves." Isaac swore under his breath. Reeves had a reputation throughout the territory not just for finding those he hunted, but for his ruthlessness in doing so. "He has no right," Naomi whispered. "I'm 19 years old. My father has no claim on me or my son." "Legally, you're correct," Sheriff Davis agreed, "but Reeves doesn't always concern himself with the finer points of law." He turned to Isaac. "Thought you should know, I'd keep that rifle handy if I were you." Isaac's jaw tightened. "I appreciate the warning, Sheriff." After the lawman departed, a heavy silence fell over the cabin. Naomi stared at Thomas, sleeping peacefully in her arms, unaware of the new threat looming over them. "He'll take him," she said, her voice breaking. "My father will take Thomas and send me away, or worse, he'll raise him with all that hatred and coldness." Isaac knelt beside her chair, his eyes level with hers. "Listen to me, Naomi. No one is taking your son. No one is taking you anywhere you don't want to go. Do you understand?" "But Reeves is just a man," Isaac finished firmly, "and no match for someone protecting what matters." He hesitated, then placed his hand gently over hers where it cradled Thomas. "I meant what I said when we first met. You carried this burden alone before. You don't have to anymore. I'll bear it with you. I'll bear the whole world for you both if I have to." The fierce protectiveness in his voice stirred something in Naomi, something she'd thought had died with Edward's betrayal. It wasn't just gratitude she felt for Isaac, she realized. It was something deeper, something that had been growing quietly during these weeks of healing. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why would you do that for us?" Isaac's gaze didn't waver. "Because in these few weeks, you and Thomas have brought more life to this place than I've known since my mother passed. Because you deserve better than what fate has dealt you so far, and because—" He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "Because I think I'm falling in love with both of you." The admission hung between them, fragile and monumental. Naomi's heart pounded as she processed his words. It was too soon, too sudden, and yet somehow it felt right in a way nothing had before. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Isaac smiled gently. "You don't need to say anything. I'm not asking for promises. Just know that I'll protect you both, whatever comes." He stood then, giving her space. "I need to warn Miguel and make some preparations. Reeves won't come today, but we should be ready." As he moved about the cabin, collecting ammunition and checking the security of the windows and doors, Naomi watched him. His movements were purposeful, confident, those of a man accustomed to facing challenges head-on. She thought of Edward with his smooth words and empty promises, and the stark contrast with Isaac's quiet actions and unwavering support. Edward had wanted what she could give him. Isaac wanted to give her what she needed. "Isaac," she called softly as he prepared to go to the barn. He turned, his hand on the door latch. "I'm not ready to make promises either," she said carefully. "But I want you to know that what you feel, I think I might be feeling it too." The smile that spread across his face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains, warm and full of promise. And for the first time since that cold night when her father had cast her out, Naomi felt something unfamiliar but welcome: hope. The following days passed in a state of vigilant preparation. Isaac reinforced the cabin's defenses, boarding up the back window and constructing a heavy bar for the door. Miguel brought his bedroll into the main house from his usual quarters in the barn loft, taking turns with Isaac to keep watch through the nights. February brought heavy snowfall that temporarily eased their fears. Few travelers, even bounty hunters, would brave the mountain passes in such conditions. The forced confinement created an unexpected gift: time together without the immediate pressure of Reeves's threat. Naomi's feet had healed enough that she could walk short distances, and she insisted on taking over cooking duties. Isaac discovered she had a talent for making even simple provisions taste remarkable. Thomas grew stronger each day, his personality emerging as he began to smile and coo at both Naomi and, to her quiet delight, at Isaac as well. On a particularly cold evening, with wind howling outside and snow piling against the windows, Isaac taught Naomi to play checkers on a board he'd carved years ago. They sat close by the fire, Thomas sleeping nearby in his cradle, while Miguel dozed in the rocking chair, his rifle across his knees. "King me," Naomi said triumphantly, moving her piece to Isaac's end of the board. He chuckled, placing one of the captured pieces atop hers. "You're a natural. Sure you haven't played before?" "Never," she replied, grinning. "We didn't have games at home. Father said they encouraged idleness." Isaac moved his piece diagonally. "Your father seems to have had opinions on a great many things." "He does," Naomi agreed, studying the board. "Everything was either God's will or the devil's temptation, nothing in between." She captured one of his pieces with a deft move. "What about your father? Was he strict too?" Isaac leaned back, memories washing over him. "Not strict so much as particular. He believed a man's word was his bond and that actions spoke louder than promises. He taught me to ride before I could properly walk, and to respect the land because it gives us everything we need if we treat it right." "You must miss him," Naomi said softly. "Every day," Isaac admitted, "but I see him sometimes when I look out at the ranch or when I work with the horses. He's still here in what he built," he gestured around the cabin, "just like my mother is." They played in companionable silence for a while, the crackling fire and Miguel's soft snores the only sounds. Eventually, Isaac cleared his throat. "I've been thinking," he began, suddenly nervous. "About what happens after, when the snow clears and Reeves is dealt with one way or another." Naomi's hands stilled over the board. "Oh, you mentioned wanting to reach Silver Creek eventually, start fresh there." He moved a piece without really looking at the board. "But I wondered if you'd considered staying here, with me." The words hung in the air between them. Naomi's heart quickened, but she remained silent, waiting for him to continue. "I know it's forward of me," Isaac went on, his normally confident voice uncertain. "We've not known each other long, but I care for you, Naomi, for both of you, and I hope you might feel something for me too." She looked up at him, this man who had saved her life, who had tended her wounds and crafted a cradle for her son, who now offered her something she'd never dared hope for: a home, not just shelter but belonging. "Isaac," she began, but the words caught in her throat. He misinterpreted her hesitation. "You don't have to answer now, it's just something to consider. I'd provide for you both, treat Thomas as my own son, we could build a life here. But if that's not what you want, it is," she interrupted, surprising herself with her certainty. "It's exactly what I want. I just never imagined anyone would want us." Isaac reached across the checkerboard and took her hand. "I want nothing more in this world. Their eyes met, and Naomi felt something shift inside her, the last walls around her heart crumbling away. Before she could respond, Thomas stirred in his cradle, letting out a soft cry that quickly became more insistent. Isaac smiled. Someone has impeccable timing. Naomi rose to tend to her son, lifting him from the cradle. As she settled back in her chair to nurse him, Isaac watched them both with such tenderness that it brought tears to her eyes. "I think," she said softly, "that we've been making a family without even realizing it." "The best kind," Isaac agreed, his voice rough with emotion. Miguel stirred then, blinking awake. "Is it my watch?" he asked groggily. "Not for another hour," Isaac assured him. "Go back to sleep." The older man nodded, his eyes drifting closed again, but before sleep reclaimed him, he murmured something that made both Isaac and Naomi smile. "It is good to hear laughter in this house again." And it was true, Naomi realized. Despite the danger hanging over them, despite the uncertainty of their future, there had been laughter. There had been joy. There had been healing not just of her body, but of her spirit. As Thomas finished nursing and drifted back to sleep in her arms, Naomi looked at Isaac and made her decision. "Yes," she said simply. He looked confused for a moment. "Yes, yes, I'll stay, we'll stay if you truly want us." Isaac's face transformed with such happiness that Naomi felt her breath catch. He rose and came to kneel beside her chair, one hand gently touching Thomas's downy head, the other finding hers. "I want you both more than anything," he said, his voice fervent. "I'll spend every day making sure you never regret this choice." The intensity of his gaze made her heart race. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, Isaac leaned forward. Their lips met in a tender kiss, their first filled with promise and hope. When they parted, Naomi felt as though something fundamental had changed in the universe. The cabin was the same, the storm still raged outside, the danger still loomed on the horizon. But now there was certainty where doubt had been, connection where there had been loneliness. "I think I love you, Isaac Dawson," she whispered. His smile was brighter than the firelight. "I know I love you, Naomi Lawson." Thomas stirred between them, and they both laughed softly. Isaac placed a gentle kiss on the baby's forehead. "And you too, little man," he added. "Both of you, with all my heart." The moment was perfect, a bubble of warmth and safety in a world that had shown Naomi little of either. But as the wind howled fiercer outside, rattling the windows in their frames, she couldn't help but wonder how long such happiness could last before reality intruded once more. March arrived with thawing snow and lengthening days. The mountains surrounding the valley shed their white mantles in stages, revealing patches of green that promised spring's eventual arrival. With the improved weather came increased vigilance. The passes would soon be clear enough for travelers, including those with less than peaceful intentions. Isaac doubled the watch, often riding the boundaries of his property with his rifle across his saddle. Miguel reinforced the corral and barn, creating defensible positions should the need arise. Meanwhile, Naomi's strength continued to return, her feet now fully healed save for a patch of scarring on her right heel. Thomas thrived, growing robust under the combined care of his mother and Isaac, who doted on the boy as if he were his own flesh and blood. In quiet evenings, Isaac would hold him while Naomi rested, telling the infant stories about the ranch and the animals, promising to teach him to ride and rope when he was older. On one such evening, as March was giving way to April, Naomi watched them from the doorway of the bedroom that Isaac had insisted she take over permanently. The sight of the tall cowboy cradling her son so tenderly made her heart swell. The past months had transformed her world in ways she could never have imagined when she fled her father's house. "He's finally asleep," Isaac whispered, carefully placing Thomas in his cradle. He straightened and turned, catching Naomi watching him. His face softened with the special smile he reserved just for her. "What are you thinking about? You look miles away." She moved to join him by the fire, accepting his hand as she settled beside him on the small sofa. "I was thinking about how different my life is now from what I expected. How close we came to never meeting." Isaac's arm slipped around her shoulders, drawing her close. I try not to think about that, the idea of you and Thomas out there alone. He shook his head. It was Providence that led me to you that day. Do you really believe that? Naomi asked, curious. She knew Isaac wasn't a religious man in the way her father had been, rarely attending the services held in town. I believe there's something bigger than us guiding things sometimes, he replied thoughtfully. My mother called it God's hand, my father called it the way of things. Whatever it is, I'm grateful it put you in my path. Naomi leaned her head against his shoulder, content in the simple pleasure of being close to him. Over the past weeks, their relationship had deepened, though Isaac had been careful to maintain proper boundaries, mindful of her recent ordeal and recovery. I've been thinking, she said after a comfortable silence, about what you said before about me staying here permanently. Isaac shifted to look at her, his expression suddenly serious. And I want that, Isaac, more than anything, but she hesitated. But we need to resolve the matter of my father and this bounty hunter first. I can't live looking over my shoulder, fearing Thomas might be taken. Isaac nodded slowly. I've been thinking about that too. Sheriff Davis rode by yesterday while you were napping. He says Reeves has been spotted in Casper asking questions about us. Fear clutched at Naomi's heart. He's coming then. Yes, Isaac confirmed, but I've had an idea. He took her hands in his. What if we remove your father's reason for sending him? What do you mean? Isaac took a deep breath. Marry me, Naomi, now before Reeves arrives. As your husband, I would have legal standing to protect both you and Thomas. Your father would have no claim on either of you. Naomi's eyes widened. Though they had spoken of building a life together, of her staying permanently, the word marriage had not been explicitly mentioned until now. You want to marry me, truly? Isaac's expression was earnest. I've wanted to marry you since the day you first smiled at me across this room. I was waiting for the right time to ask properly, but circumstances are forcing my hand. His grip on her fingers tightened slightly. This isn't just about protection, Naomi. I love you. I love Thomas. I want us to be a family in every sense of the word. Tears welled in Naomi's eyes. I love you too, Isaac, but marriage, it's so permanent. That's exactly what I want, he said softly. Permanence with you. A smile broke through her tears. Then yes, I'll marry you. The joy that transformed Isaac's face was breathtaking. He pulled her into an embrace, kissing her with a passion that made her head spin and her heart race. When they finally parted, both breathless, he pressed his forehead to hers. I'll ride into town first thing tomorrow to speak with the preacher. We can be married by week's end. The next morning dawned clear and bright, with only the slightest chill in the air hinting at winter's recent departure. Isaac prepared to ride to town, dressed in his best shirt and with his hair neatly combed. Naomi straightened his collar, her hands lingering on his chest. Be careful, she urged. If Reeves is about, I'll keep my eyes open, Isaac promised. Miguel will stay with you and Thomas. Don't leave the house and keep the rifle handy just in case. She nodded, trying to suppress the anxiety bubbling within her. Hurry back to us. He kissed her once more before mounting Samson and riding out, his figure silhouetted against the rising sun. Naomi watched until he disappeared over the ridge, then returned inside to where Miguel was entertaining Thomas with exaggerated faces. He will be fine, señorita, the older man assured her. Isaac Dawson knows how to take care of himself. Naomi nodded, forcing a smile. I know, I just worry. The day crawled by with excruciating slowness. Naomi kept herself busy with household tasks, baking bread, mending one of Isaac's shirts, organizing the pantry. Thomas napped and fed according to his usual schedule, blissfully unaware of the tension in the air. By mid-afternoon, when Isaac should have been returning, Naomi found herself checking the window with increasing frequency. The sun began its descent toward the western mountains, casting long shadows across the valley, and still there was no sign of him. Something's wrong, she said to Miguel as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. He should have been back hours ago. The ranch hand frowned, his weathered face creased with concern. I will saddle a horse and go look for him. No, Naomi decided, surprising herself with her firmness. We can't split up further if Reeves has found Isaac. She couldn't complete the thought. As darkness fell completely, they barred the door and kept watch in shifts. Thomas, sensing the tension, was fussy and difficult to settle. Naomi paced the floor with him, singing softly and trying to project a calm she didn't feel. It was well past midnight when they heard the hoofbeats. Naomi froze, her heart pounding. Miguel grabbed his rifle and moved to the window, peering cautiously through a gap in the shutters. "It is Isaac," he reported with relief, "but he rides strangely, and there is another horse." Naomi rushed to the door, Thomas clutched to her chest as Miguel unbarred it. Isaac stumbled in, his face pale in the lamplight and a dark stain spreading across his left side. "Isaac." She cried, horror washing over her at the sight of the blood. He managed a weak smile. "I'm all right, just a flesh wound." His eyes moved to Thomas. "He okay? He's fine," Naomi assured him as Miguel helped Isaac to a chair. "What happened? Who shot you?" Isaac winced as he settled into the seat. "Reeves. He was waiting on the road back from town, ambushed me just past the creek crossing." Miguel was already cutting away Isaac's shirt to examine the wound. "The bullet passed through," he reported. "Clean, but he has lost much blood." Naomi handed Thomas to Miguel and fetched the medicine box, her hands shaking as she removed bandages and salves. "You said there was another horse," Isaac nodded grimly. "Reeves, I shot back, got him in the shoulder, but he's still dangerous. I brought his horse to slow him down, but he'll be coming on foot, probably by morning." Naomi's blood ran cold. "He's coming here, now. He means to take you and Thomas back to your father," Isaac confirmed, his face tightening with pain as Naomi began cleaning his wound. "I tried to reason with him, told him we were to be married. He just laughed and said a wedding wouldn't change your father's mind or his payment." Miguel set Thomas back in his cradle and checked his rifle. "I will watch the approaches. He will not take the señorita or the niño while I live." "Be careful," Isaac warned. "He's wounded, but that just makes him more dangerous, like a cornered wolf." After the ranch hand had taken up position by the window, Naomi continued tending to Isaac's wound. The bullet had torn through the flesh of his side, missing vital organs but leaving a painful gash that needed stitching. "This will hurt," she warned, threading a needle. Isaac nodded, bracing himself. "Did the preacher agree?" he asked, clearly trying to distract himself from the imminent pain. "What?" Naomi asked, puzzled. "To marry us. Did he agree?" Despite the circumstances, a smile touched Naomi's lips. "You're bleeding from a gunshot wound. A bounty hunter is coming to take me and my son away, and you're asking about our wedding plans." Isaac caught her hand, his eyes serious despite the pain clouding them. "Especially now, I need to know we'll have that chance." Naomi's heart swelled with love for this stubborn, dedicated man. "Did you manage to speak with him before you were shot?" "Yes. Reverend Taylor said he'd be honored. Just needs a day's notice." "Then we'll give him that notice," Naomi said firmly, "as soon as we deal with Reeves." She began stitching the wound, working quickly but carefully as Isaac had taught her when treating minor injuries around the ranch. He bore the pain stoically, only the tightness around his eyes and the occasional sharp intake of breath betraying his discomfort. When she had finished and bandaged the wound, Isaac caught her hand again, bringing it to his lips. "You're going to make a fine rancher's wife, Naomi Lawson. And you'll be a wonderful father to Thomas," she replied softly. His eyes, though dulled with pain and blood loss, shone with love. "I already am." The simple statement brought tears to her eyes. It was true, Isaac had stepped into the role of father from the moment he'd tucked Thomas inside his coat that first day. There had never been hesitation or reservation, only wholehearted acceptance and love. "Rest now," she urged, helping him to lie down on the bed. "I'll take a turn watching with Miguel." Isaac's hand tightened on hers. "Promise me something, Naomi, anything. If things go badly tomorrow, if Reeves gets past us somehow, run, take Thomas and get to town. Sheriff Davis will protect you until you can reach Martha Henderson." Fear clutched at her heart. "Don't talk like that. Nothing's going to happen to you. Promise me," he insisted. "Thomas needs his mother. I need to know you'll both be safe." Reluctantly, she nodded. "I promise, but nothing's going to happen to you, Isaac Dawson. We're getting married, remember?" A smile touched his pale lips. "I remember. It's what's keeping me going." She pressed a kiss to his forehead, then to his lips before moving to check on Thomas. The baby was sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the danger approaching. Naomi gazed at her son, fierce determination rising within her. She had already lost her family, her home, and nearly her life. She would not lose Isaac or the future they were building together. Moving to the chest at the foot of the bed, she removed the rifle Isaac had taught her to shoot during her recovery. It felt heavy and unwieldy in her hands, but she checked it was loaded as he had shown her. Miguel glanced at her as she joined him by the window. "You should rest, señorita. The fight may come early." "I'll rest when Reeves is gone," she replied grimly, "one way or another." The ranch hand studied her for a moment, then nodded with newfound respect. "You have the heart of a lioness. Isaac chose well." "We chose each other," Naomi corrected gently, "just as I believe God chose to put us in each other's paths." They fell into watchful silence as the night deepened around them. Somewhere in the darkness, a wounded bounty hunter was approaching, intent on destroying the happiness Naomi had found. But this time, unlike when she had fled her father's house, she was not alone. This time she had someone worth fighting for, and fight she would. Dawn broke over the eastern ridges, painting the valley in hues of pink and gold. Naomi, who had dozed fitfully in the chair by the window, started awake at Miguel's touch on her shoulder. "Movement," he whispered, pointing toward the tree line at the edge of the property. By the split oak. Naomi strained her eyes, finally making out a figure moving with careful deliberation from tree to tree. Even at this distance, she could see the man favored one-shoulder Reeves, wounded but determined. "Wake Isaac," Miguel instructed. "I will watch." Naomi hurried to Isaac's side. He was pale from blood loss but alert, his eyes clearing quickly as she explained the situation. "Help me up," he said, grimacing as he pushed himself to a sitting position. "You should rest, no time," Isaac cut her off, gentle but firm. "Reeves won't wait for me to heal." With Naomi's assistance, he managed to stand and make his way to the window. Miguel had positioned himself at the corner where he had the best view of the approaching bounty hunter. "He's moving carefully," Isaac observed, "testing for traps or lookouts." "What's the plan?" Naomi asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Isaac considered for a moment. "Miguel, take position in the barn loft. You'll have a clear shot from there if he approaches the house." The ranch hand nodded and slipped out the back door, staying low and using the woodpile for cover as he made his way to the barn. "Naomi, I want you and Thomas in the root cellar," Isaac continued. She shook her head firmly. "I'm not hiding while you face him alone." "This isn't open for debate," Isaac insisted. I promised to run if things went badly," she countered. "They haven't gone badly yet." "I can shoot, Isaac. You taught me yourself." He looked as though he wanted to argue further but glanced at his wound and nodded reluctantly. "Stay back from the windows. If I fall, then you take Thomas and run. No heroics, that's the deal." "That's the deal," she agreed, though in her heart she knew she could never simply flee if Isaac were hurt. They positioned themselves strategically, Isaac by the front window with a clear view of the approach. Naomi near the back with Thomas's cradle moved to the most protected corner of the cabin. The minutes stretched into an hour, then two, with no further sign of Reeves. "He's being patient," Isaac murmured, "waiting for us to make a mistake." As if his words had summoned action, a shot rang out from the direction of the barn, followed by a cry of pain that Naomi recognized as Miguel's voice. "Miguel?" Isaac tensed, clearly torn between maintaining his position and checking on his friend. "I'll go," Naomi decided, grabbing her rifle. "Naomi?" No, but she was already moving, slipping out the back door and staying close to the cabin wall. The distance to the barn was about 40 yards of open ground, dangerous territory with Reeves watching. She would have to be fast. Taking a deep breath, Naomi sprinted across the yard, her heart pounding. No shots came, and she reached the barn safely, pressing herself against its rough wooden wall. The side door was slightly ajar, and she slipped inside, rifle ready. "Miguel," she called softly. A groan from the hayloft answered her. Keeping her back to the wall, Naomi climbed the ladder to find the ranch hand clutching his leg, blood seeping between his fingers. "He shot me through the window," Miguel explained through gritted teeth. Then he moved toward the house. I think it was a distraction. Alarm surged through Naomi. Isaac and Thomas are alone in the cabin. She quickly bound Miguel's leg with a strip torn from her petticoat, then descended the ladder. At the barn door, she peered out cautiously. No sign of Reeves, and the cabin appeared undisturbed. Making her decision, she darted back across the yard, reaching the cabin without incident. She eased the back door open and froze at the tableau before her. Isaac stood in the center of the room, his hands raised slightly. Facing him was a tall, gaunt man with a week's growth of beard and cold eyes, Harlan Reeves. The bounty hunter's left shoulder was clearly wounded, the arm hanging awkwardly, but his right hand held a pistol trained steadily on Isaac's chest. "Your ranch hand won't be joining us," Reeves was saying. "And now it's just a matter of convincing you to step aside so I can collect what I came for." "That's not going to happen," Isaac replied, his voice calm despite the gun pointed at him. Reeves sighed dramatically. "You cowboys, always so noble. This isn't your fight, Dawson." "The girl belongs to her father, she belongs to herself," Isaac interrupted. "And soon she'll be my wife," the bounty hunter laughed. "Wife? You'd marry damaged goods, a girl who spread her legs for some traveling man and got herself with child." Naomi saw Isaac's jaw clench, but he maintained his composure. "I'd be honored to call her my wife, and Thomas my son." "Touching," Reeves sneered. "But it doesn't change the fact that I'm taking them back to Casper. Her father's paying good money, and I never leave a job unfinished." From her position near the door, Naomi could see Thomas's cradle just behind Reeves. The baby was awake, making small cooing sounds that would soon turn to cries. She had to act before Reeves realized she wasn't in the cellar as Isaac had likely told him. With careful movements, she raised her rifle, aiming at Reeves's back. But as she steadied her breath to take the shot, a floorboard creaked beneath her weight. Reeves whirled, his pistol swinging toward her. Isaac lunged forward, grappling for the gun. The two men collided, and the pistol discharged with a deafening crack. Naomi screamed as Isaac staggered backward, clutching his chest. Blood blossomed on his shirt, spreading rapidly across the fabric. "Isaac," she cried, rushing forward as he collapsed to his knees. Reeves, momentarily stunned by the turn of events, recovered quickly. He aimed his pistol at Naomi, his eyes cold. "Drop the rifle, girl, now." But something had changed in Naomi. The sight of Isaac bleeding on the floor, potentially dying, had burned away her fear, leaving only cold fury. She raised her rifle, pointing it directly at Reeves's heart. "Get out," she said, her voice deadly quiet. "Get out, or I swear to God I'll kill you where you stand." Reeves hesitated, clearly weighing his options. The woman before him bore little resemblance to the frightened girl he'd been hired to retrieve. This woman's eyes held no uncertainty, only lethal promise. "Your father's paying me a lot of money," he said, though his voice had lost some of its confidence. "My father cast me out to die," Naomi replied evenly. "And the man who just tried to save me is the only family I need." Her finger tensed on the trigger. "Last chance, Reeves." For a long moment they stood at impasse, each with a weapon trained on the other. Then, surprisingly, Reeves lowered his pistol. "Not worth dying for," he muttered. "Tell your father yourself why you won't come home." Naomi kept her rifle raised as the bounty hunter backed toward the door. "If you ever come near my family again, I won't hesitate," she warned. Reeves paused at the threshold. "You know, girl, you might have made a decent bounty hunter yourself, got the steel for it." With that parting observation, he disappeared into the morning light. The moment he was gone, Naomi dropped the rifle and rushed to Isaac's side. He was conscious but breathing shallowly, his face ashen with pain and blood loss. "Stay with me," she begged, tearing open his shirt to assess the wound. The bullet had struck his upper chest, missing his heart but causing serious damage. "Please, Isaac, stay with me." His hand found hers, squeezing weakly. "Knew you were a fighter," he managed, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Save your strength," she urged, pressing a clean cloth to the wound to stem the bleeding. "Miguel's hurt, but I think he can ride. I'll send him for the doctor." Isaac's eyes fluttered. "Naomi, love you, both of you." Fear clutched at her heart as his grip on her hand weakened. "Don't you dare, Isaac Dawson," she said fiercely. "Don't you dare say goodbye. We're getting married, remember, you promised." His eyes focused on her face, determination flickering through the pain. "Not going anywhere," he whispered. "Just resting a minute." Naomi pressed her forehead to his. "That's right, just rest. I'll take care of everything." She kissed him gently, tasting the salt of her own tears on his lips. "I love you. Hold on to that." The next hours passed in a blur of desperate activity. Miguel, despite his wounded leg, managed to ride for the doctor in town. Naomi tended Isaac as best she could, applying pressure to the wound, giving him water when he was conscious enough to swallow, and praying as she had never prayed before. Thomas, sensing the crisis, was unusually quiet, watching with solemn eyes from his cradle when Naomi placed him there between tending to Isaac. Once, when she placed the baby beside Isaac on the bed, Thomas reached out with his tiny hand and touched the cowboy's face, as if encouraging him to wake. The doctor arrived by mid-afternoon, his weathered face grave as he examined Isaac's wound. "The bullet's lodged near his lung," he reported. "I'll need to operate here. He won't survive the journey to town." "Will he survive the operation?" Naomi asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The doctor's honest eyes met hers. "I don't know. He's lost a lot of blood and there's risk of infection, but he's strong and he has something to live for." He glanced meaningfully at Thomas, then back at Naomi. "That counts for a great deal." The surgery was grueling. Naomi assisted, forcing herself to remain calm as the doctor extracted the bullet and repaired the damage as best he could. Isaac remained unconscious throughout, his breathing labored but persistent. "Now we wait," the doctor said when it was done. "Keep the wound clean, make sure he drinks when he wakes. I'll return tomorrow to check on him." After the doctor had left, having also tended to Miguel's less serious injury, Naomi sat by Isaac's bedside, holding his hand and speaking softly to him. She told him about the future she envisioned for them, expanding the ranch, watching Thomas grow, perhaps adding to their family someday. She spoke of simple dreams, summer picnics by the creek, winter evenings by the fire, a lifetime of ordinary moments made extraordinary by sharing them together. Night fell and still Isaac slept. Naomi dozed fitfully in the chair beside him, waking at every change in his breathing or slight movement. Thomas, fed and changed, slept in his cradle nearby, his presence a reminder of all that was at stake. It was just before dawn when Isaac's fingers tightened around hers. His eyes opened slowly, finding her face in the dim light of the dying fire. "Naomi," he whispered, his voice rough but clear. Joy surged through her. "I'm here, we're both here." His gaze moved to Thomas's cradle. "Reeves." "Gone," she assured him. "He won't be back." A small smile touched Isaac's pale lips. "You scared him off, didn't you?" "Let's just say he realized some things aren't worth dying for," Naomi replied, stroking Isaac's hair back from his forehead. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been trampled by a herd of buffalo," he admitted, "but alive, definitely alive." Tears of relief filled Naomi's eyes. "The doctor says you'll recover with time and rest." Isaac's hand found hers again. "Time I can manage, rest might be harder with a wedding to plan." Naomi's heart swelled at the evidence that his spirit remained unbroken despite his injuries. "The wedding can wait until you're stronger." "No," Isaac said with surprising firmness. "No more waiting. Life's too short and too precious to waste a day of it." His blue eyes held hers intently. "As soon as I can stand, we're getting married." "Agreed." Naomi leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to his lips. "Agreed." 2 weeks later, on a perfect spring morning with wildflowers carpeting the valley and birdsong filling the air, Naomi stood beside Isaac in the small church in town. He was still pale and moved carefully to avoid straining his healing wound, but his eyes were bright with happiness as they spoke their vows before Reverend Taylor. Thomas, dressed in a christening gown sewn by Martha Henderson, watched the proceedings from Miguel's arms, occasionally cooing as if offering his approval. The church was filled with neighbors and townspeople who had heard the remarkable story of the cowboy who had saved a cast-out mother and child and then nearly died protecting them. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Taylor declared. "You may kiss your bride, Mr. Dawson." Isaac gently lifted the simple veil Naomi wore over her best dress, another gift from the generous Martha, and gazed at her with such love that she felt it like a physical warmth. "Mrs. Dawson," he murmured, before claiming her lips in a tender kiss that promised a lifetime of tomorrows. The small congregation erupted in cheers and applause. As they turned to face their well-wishers, Naomi caught sight of a figure standing at the back of the church, a tall man with a familiar stern face that had haunted her dreams for months. Her father. She froze, her hand tightening on Isaac's arm. He followed her gaze, his body tensing as he recognized the man from her descriptions. "What is he doing here?" she whispered. Before Isaac could respond, Reverend Taylor stepped forward. "Mr. Lawson arrived yesterday," he explained quietly. "He asked to attend the ceremony. I told him it would be your decision whether he stayed or left." Naomi looked at her father again. He seemed older than she remembered, his face lined with something that might have been regret. When their eyes met, he gave a slight nod, not exactly apologetic, but acknowledging. "What do you want to do?" Isaac asked, his voice gentle but with an undertone that made it clear he would support whatever she decided. Naomi considered the man who had cast her out in her darkest hour, who had hired a bounty hunter to retrieve her like lost property, who had nearly cost Isaac his life. Then she looked at her husband, at Miguel holding Thomas, at the community that had embraced them. "He can stay for the ceremony," she decided. "Beyond that, we'll see." Isaac nodded, pressing a reassuring kiss to her temple. Together they made their way down the aisle, accepting congratulations and well wishes. When they reached her father, Naomi paused. "Father," she acknowledged, her voice steady. He removed his hat, holding it awkwardly before him. "Naomi." His eyes moved to Thomas in Miguel's arms, then to Isaac. "Mr. Dawson, Mr. Lawson," Isaac replied evenly. "You've come a long way. When Reeves returned without you, I realized." He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. "I realized I had made a grave error in judgment." Naomi raised an eyebrow, waiting. This man had taught her that actions spoke louder than words. An admission was not an apology. Her father cleared his throat. "Your mother. She has not been well since you left. She misses you. Your sisters ask about you." He glanced at Thomas again. "About both of you." "I'm sorry to hear Mother is unwell," Naomi said sincerely. "Please give her my love." An uncomfortable silence fell. Finally, her father spoke again. "The boy. He's healthy." "Thomas," Naomi corrected firmly. "His name is Thomas, and yes, he's thriving." Her father nodded. "That's good." He straightened, some of his old authority returning. "I would like to know my grandson, Naomi, and for your mother to know him as well." Isaac's hand settled protectively at the small of her back. "That would be Naomi's decision," he said, his tone making it clear he would abide by whatever she chose. Naomi studied her father, seeing him clearly perhaps for the first time. He was a product of his beliefs and upbringing, rigid and uncompromising, but he had come here, taken the first step. It was more than she had ever expected. "We live on the Dawson Ranch," she said after a moment. "You and Mother would be welcome to visit if you can accept that this is my family now. Isaac, Thomas, and I, we're a package, Father, all or nothing." Her father's eyes moved between the three of them, something shifting in his expression. "I understand," he said finally. "Your mother and I would be grateful for the opportunity to visit." It wasn't perfect reconciliation, but it was a beginning. Naomi nodded, accepting this small peace offering. "Write to us when you plan to come. The ranch is 3 hours' ride west of town." With another awkward nod, her father replaced his hat and stepped back, allowing them to continue to the church steps where their friends waited to shower them with flower petals and good wishes. As they emerged into the bright spring sunlight, Isaac drew Naomi close, mindful of his healing wound. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Naomi looked up at her husband, this man who had saved her life, who had offered his heart and home without reservation, who loved her son as his own. Beyond him, she could see the mountains that sheltered their ranch, the valley where Thomas would learn to run and ride, the community that had embraced them. "I'm more than all right," she replied, her heart full to bursting. "I'm home." 1 year later, the first anniversary of their wedding dawned clear and warm. Naomi woke to find Isaac already up, Thomas balanced on his hip as he prepared coffee one-handed. At 15 months, Thomas was walking running, more accurately and babbling constantly, his favorite word being pa for Isaac. "Good morning, Mrs. Dawson." Isaac greeted her with a smile that still made her heart skip. "We were trying to let you sleep in." Naomi stretched and rose from their bed, crossing to kiss first Thomas's cheek, then Isaac's lips. A noble effort, but I heard this little chatterbox from across the room. Thomas reached for her, transitioning easily from Isaac's arms to hers. "Ma, ma." "Yes, I'm your ma," she agreed, nuzzling his dark curls. "And it's a special day today. Do you know why?" Thomas babbled something unintelligible but enthusiastic, making both adults laugh. "Close enough," Isaac said, pouring coffee for Naomi. "Happy anniversary, my love." "Happy anniversary," she returned, accepting the cup. "I have something for you." Isaac raised an eyebrow. "We agreed no gifts." "This one couldn't wait," Naomi said, her eyes twinkling with secret knowledge. She set Thomas down to play with the wooden horse Isaac had carved for him, then took her husband's hands. "I visited Dr. Miller yesterday when Martha took me to town." Understanding dawned on Isaac's face, hope and wonder transforming his features. "Naomi, are you saying?" She nodded, joy bubbling up inside her. "Yes, we're having a baby, around Christmas, the doctor thinks." Isaac let out a whoop of delight, lifting her and spinning her around despite her laughing protests. "A baby, Thomas is going to be a big brother." "He is," Naomi confirmed when he set her back on her feet, "and you're going to be a father, again." Isaac's eyes shone with emotion as he placed a gentle hand on her still flat stomach. "I'm already a father thanks to you and Thomas. But I can't wait to welcome another little Dawson to our family." Their kiss was interrupted by Thomas tugging at Isaac's pants leg, demanding attention. Isaac scooped him up, lifting him high in the air as the boy squealed with delight. "What do you think, Thomas? Ready for a little brother or sister?" Thomas clapped his hands, clearly approving of the game if not fully understanding the news. Later that afternoon, they sat on the porch of their cabin, expanded now with a proper bedroom for Thomas, and a large kitchen where Naomi loved to bake. The ranch had prospered under their joint care, with new cattle and 2 additional ranch hands to help Miguel, whose leg had healed well enough for most tasks. In the distance, a dust cloud signaled approaching riders. Naomi shaded her eyes, recognizing the Hendersons' wagon. "Martha's early," she remarked. "The anniversary dinner isn't for hours yet." Isaac squinted at the approaching vehicle. "That's not just the Hendersons," he said, standing. "Looks like your parents' wagon behind theirs." Naomi's heart quickened. Her parents had visited 3 times over the past year, each visit less strained than the last. Her mother had taken to Thomas immediately, and even her father had softened when the boy had fallen asleep in his lap during their last visit. "They weren't expected until next week," she said, surprised but pleased. Isaac helped her to her feet, his hand lingering protectively over her abdomen. "Should we tell them about the baby?" Naomi smiled up at him. "Yes, it's time they knew all their grandchildren." As the wagons drew nearer, Thomas ran to the edge of the porch, waving enthusiastically. "Gamma, Gamma," he called, recognizing his grandmother in the second wagon. Naomi watched their son greeting her parents with unrestrained joy, unaware of the complex history between them. In his world, there was only love and acceptance, the legacy she and Isaac had determined to give him from the moment they became a family. Isaac's arm slipped around her waist, drawing her close. "Happy?" he asked softly. Naomi leaned into him, watching as her father lifted Thomas from the porch with a smile that would have been unimaginable a year ago. Her mother was already unpacking a basket of preserves and fresh bread, chatting with Martha about the latest gossip from town. Miguel and the other ranch hands were greeting the Henderson men, talking of cattle prices and the summer grazing. This was her world now, not perfect, still healing in places, but whole and real and filled with more love than she had ever dared dream possible. "Yes," she answered, turning to meet her husband's gaze, "completely and utterly happy." Isaac's eyes, still the same clear blue that had first given her hope on that snowy day when all seemed lost, crinkled with his smile. "Me too," he said, kissing her softly. Every single day with you and Thomas, and now our new little one is a blessing I never thought I'd have." As they moved to greet their guests, Naomi reflected on the journey that had brought them here from desperation and near death to this abundance of love and connection. She had fled her father's house with nothing but her child and determination to survive. Isaac had found her at her lowest moment and promised to bear the world for them both. And he had kept that promise, creating with her a world worth bearing, one built on love, acceptance, and the simple, profound joy of belonging. For Naomi Dawson, cast out but now found, it was more than enough. It was everything.